I think more women are leaving church because young women pay so much more attention to the ebbs and flows of social media.
Giving women the priesthood would destroy the membership in the church.
Women are trying to mimic men because they're not comfortable in their own power.
All the dudes bow to what these women say. Like, I mean, when push comes to shove, anybody
they should.
Mary Magdalene was the wife of the Lord. The first person that the resurrected Lord appeared to was a woman. They didn't believe her because, well, they wouldn't believe a woman.
Kylie, be careful. You're mansplaining right now.
Ordaining women is the easiest way to guarantee that your church is headed for extinction.
This is a demonstration of how society is failing the females, not supporting them, making them more equal. I mean, how brutal is it to tell a woman that on top of raising children, now you also have to suffer the mental burden of all their problems as bishop in the congregation?
The women are the ones who decide things for society culturally, and they always win.
It is settled science. If you get the men into a church body, the women and the children all follow.
Women absolutely have roles in the church, but they never overlap with men. All Christian churches are losing men and women. And the ones that survive and thrive are the ones that are more orthodox, more conservative, and they have male leadership that they don't apologize for.
We need women to step forward and say, no, hold on. That's not true.
Everyone has struggles in the church, but women not being valued, I don't think that should ever be one of them.
I believe the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is exactly right about the role of women, and all of those women leaving are totally wrong.
Right now, men are in charge of the church, so if the church fails, that's on men. Like, I had nothing to do with it.
All of the scriptural references used in this episode will be brought to you by scripturenotes.com. For a free trial to Scripture Notes, please visit the link in the description. Why women outnumber men among the young adults leaving religion? Interesting. It's a good question. That's a good question. I don't know. What do you think? Jonah, Brittany, what do you guys think?
Brittany, what do you think?
I mean, I think it's pretty obvious. I think feminism is on the rise, and it has been for a while. And I think women are trying to be like men and trying to mimic their power and their success. And really, they're not honing in on their own power. That's why.
Huh. Okay, I don't know. What do you think, Kwaku? What do you think, Jonah? I got my thoughts, but, you know... You guys, you asked the question. What do you think, Kwaku? You're thinking. I could tell you're thinking. What are you thinking, man?
No, I want everyone else to go first because I know I'm gonna have the most unpopular opinion in the room, so that's why I want ever.
Okay, because gosh, see, man, here we all are wanting everybody else to go first. So I guess you know what I'm saying. I guess I'll go next. I think that yeah. Actually, I agree with my wife that all of these different movements have taken their tolls, and the vilification of the proverbial white Christian male as the cause and root of all evil, and he's evil because of Judeo-Christian values et al. Has taken a toll, okay? And that toll was first noticed on young men because they were the first and the hardest, most vilified. So they've returned back to church, see the value in it. Yeah, I think it's just taking its toll. I don't know though. Like, I feel like that was a bad answer. I don't know, Jonah. What do you think?
I mean, a hot take. I haven't really thought of a hot take. I'd say so. I have daughters. I have 3 daughters, and I have 3 sons. And so I would defy any of you feminists out there who are about to judge me and say I have changed more women's diapers, more girls' diapers than you have. So don't criticize my bona fides in this.
Okay.
I've helped procreate 3 women. So, you know, but I think about my girls, and I think that the number one thing I want to keep them away from is social media. I want to keep them away from...
You can't...
What?
I helped procreate 3 women.
I did.
And then just thought you saying that but wearing like all blue for some reason. It's just, I don't know what about that just is so like strange. I don't know.
That's funny.
I don't know.
Okay, all right. What do you think, Kwaku? Why do you think, Kwaku?
Well, I have a couple thoughts. I think women, by and large, are saying, at least in America and Canada, want more representation in church leadership, and they're not getting it, so they're protesting by not showing up. I think they're going to win. I think
they're going to win as in they're going to get it?
Yeah.
In the church at large or in ours?
Both.
Oh, interesting.
Both.
You think women are going to get leadership in our church?
But they do.
No, I mean real leadership, not like the ones we tell, you know what I mean? Like, come on. You know.
Relief Society General President. You don't think that's a leader?
It is, but she can't make any decisions. Like, she...
Because then you could say, yeah, all the men leadership, they can't make the decision because that's up to the prophet.
Yeah,
so
but
ultimately, it's up to one man who communes with God.
So this way, there's a number of historians, especially in the community of Christ.
By the way, be careful. You're mansplaining right now.
And no. You forgot. Black card overpowers the one card. So anyway, I'm putting it on the table. Black and Arab card. I got extra credit on that.
You got the extra credit.
But there's a lot to suggest that Joseph Smith wanted women to have a little more power in the church and Relief Society to have a little more power than it did after his death, right? There's also reportings of women that would give blessings to people on behalf of other priesthood authority that existed. So stuff like that doesn't happen anymore.
Now, when you say there's evidence that Joseph Smith wanted an increased role of the Relief Society after his death, are you talking about like journal articles? Is this like a sentence in the King Follett Discourse that goes unnoticed? What?
Well, this is the you need to get like Don Bradley on for this subject.
Okay.
I'm not gonna,
Okay.
But let's just say there's enough out there that people make the claim that Joseph wanted women to be able to give blessings.
Okay, interesting.
Go have fun with that. Run with it, okay? So, Mary Magdalene was the wife of the Lord. The first person that the resurrected Lord appeared to was a woman. They didn't believe her because, well, they wouldn't believe a woman. Women have been the one to carry society. Women are the ones, when they make a decision together, that's where society goes. Okay, so when women say we want modesty in full, guess what? There's modesty in full. When women say, I'm going to make the record to sleep with 1,000 men in 1 week, guess what? 1,000 men show up. Bonnie Blue. And if you don't know who that is, don't Google it.
Don't Google it.
Please don't Google it, okay? Whenever women decide, the women are the ones who decide things for society culturally, and they always win. So...
Well, that's what I was saying is they're trying to mimic men when really they have the power and control. Women just stopped believing that they do. So that's on us. That's on women.
I don't know what you mean.
I mean, women, like, take your example about women doing blessings. Just because I don't have the priesthood, I don't feel like I'm banned from praying for my kids.
No, I mean
Or
like laying on of hands.
Yeah, but like, I mean, this might be controversial, but like, I don't think because you put hands on someone's head, I don't think that's what is going to make the blessing come to pass.
And I think we're chasing...
it's your intent, and I think I have just as much access to Heavenly Father as any man does. And if I want to bless my kid, I'm going to pray, and I have the faith that he's going to heal or he's going to bless that.
And I think we're chasing the wrong rabbit. I don't think giving women the priesthood would destroy the membership in the church, men and women. And so it's done in every church. Every church that ordains women, their numbers tank. I think the idea that, they just want more power, and if we give it to them, they'll come back is a complete lie. It won't.
I push back,
the worst thing you could do.
Push back. What is the biggest church in Texas right now? It's only one church, but their membership online globally makes them almost a denomination. That's Joel Osteen, right?
Oh, okay.
His wife, Rebecca, is a pastor. It's Joel and Rebecca Osteen, I'm pretty sure. That woman commands and controls, like Sadie Robertson in her podcast and her live talks.
Emily Bell Freeman runs half of the church office building, and she doesn't have the priesthood.
Well,
but
no.
still,
I'm talking about Jonah's point, though, that if women have the priesthood.
But we have pastors, bro. Like our Relief Society presidents,
you're
our
not,
primary presidents are the equivalent of women's pastors.
You're
and
saying
youth
something
pastors.
different than I'm saying. Jonah said that giving women the priesthood and that authority would destroy those.
Yes.
But effectively evangelicals have done that, and it's still working for them.
It
really
isn't
well.
working for them.
No, Protestants, it's not.
No. You're talking anecdotally. The data is in. It's been in for 50 years. When churches liberalize and they are hyper inclusive, we've done several episodes on this, and they ordain women, it is the death knell. It is absolute death
But
knell.
how can that be true for Hillsong? For all of the large evangelical churches are only growing, and they all have big female leadership.
There's anecdote. Anecdote is not data. Is not the plural.
But
of
let's look at the
anecdote.
data though. Right now, though, because the subject at hand though is women are leaving the churches now that don't have female ordination.
Is that what the data says? I don't think that's what the data says at all.
They're leaving all American Christian churches.
You're saying
They're
evangelicals are doing all great, but they're losing men and women too.
No, I'm saying the evangelical churches that have loud, specific, promoted female leadership seem to be doing okay.
Post data, prove it. I don't believe you. We've done several episodes.
Name
on
the
this.
top 5 evangelical churches in the country.
I don't know the top 5. I don't know.
Probably do. Joel Osteen's church, whatever it's called. What is it called? Group right around it. I can't remember what it's called.
Give me money, Saint.
Give me money.
I don't know.
Okay, let's look at Hillsong. Australia and America, massive. Tons of female leadership. They're doing just fine. They've survived 5 scandals the past 10 years. They're still doing okay. Church Home, Judah Smith, right? Judah Smith and his wife. Justin Bieber goes to that church. I mean, they're attracting the big dogs. They're doing just fine. Do I think Apologia Church is going to be here in 20 years? No. Do I think the James White type of no, women aren't going to go to that. So you have to wonder if brick and mortar churches with classic patriarchal molds, the young women are leaving, and they're leaving fast, and the young men are coming in. To me, that suggests something's going to change.
See, I think I disagree with all your assumptions, all your presuppositions. All Christian churches are losing men and women. And the ones that survive and thrive are the ones that are more orthodox, more conservative, and they have male leadership that they don't apologize for. That's what the data has borne out for the past 50, 60 years. And the overwatering that churches do, the bait that they take, is they think if we just ordain women, we'll survive. And the United Methodists did this, and it destroyed them. It destroyed them in less than a single generation.
But that's also because that church split into 2.
Why did it split into 2?
Well, because you had the conservative Methodists and the liberal Methodists.
And
right?
what were they arguing about?
Gay
Ordaining
marriage.
women.
Oh, yeah, gay marriage and
Yes.
ordaining women.
It destroyed them, yeah.
But the impetus of that, I'm talking about attendees. Do people say, I'm not going to these churches anymore because of female leadership or because of infighting among
All right,
leadership?
so are we trying to get people to tune into a half-hour program of Joel Osteen's sermon once a week? Is that attendees? Who cares?
Well, I know
you know.
attendees of our local Methodist church because many of the leadership of the local GOP actually were Methodists. And they left and went with whatever the conservative offshoot was, specifically because of that issue.
Yeah, the huge Methodist church in my hometown, Good Shepherd United Methodist Church, is now no longer Good Shepherd. New logo, new name, and everything. Because
so I think a lot of the churches that you named they're kind of like the rock star churches, and just like, for example, Mark Zuckerberg can make millions of dollars, and people can point to Mark Zuckerberg and say, "Oh, millennials are doing just fine." The data is in on millennials that like the economy has not served millennials so much. So the average millennial now is like 41 years old and has less than $5,000 in the bank and like no hope of owning a home or having a third kid or repeating any of the good measurable quantifiers that their parents and grandparents had. So though there are individual like Mark Zuckerbergs, though there are individual like rappers, hip hop stars, and actors, we can point to they made it. They made a ton of money. The data's in that the middle class millennial is just gonzo,
It's hurt.
done.
Hurt
It's
and
hurt.
bad.
It's bogus. So I feel like you're right. I would say Hillsong United is crushing it, and if they want to choose to ordain women, that's their prerogative and everything. But I would also argue that Hillsong United is crushing it more for their music than their giving of women the priesthood. Does that make sense?
There's definitely certain relevance and flavor you need to have to maintain people in general, to the point where it's not going to matter. People don't Buck and I when they've got it. They come Sunday and the sermon is given by a woman, right? But I'm just saying, I think change is going to happen. I think a lot of women are saying we're not having it. We want complete equal representation. I think they're going to get it. I really do. I mean, I think it's going to happen.
I think that the reason, perhaps this is a hot take, maybe a reason why social media is kind of the biggest change that's happened in the past 10 years, which is where we see this rise of the nuns in that younger generation. And I think
that's what
media
didn't exist before. All the data pre-social media is like, okay, it's good to consider.
That's a good point. You're right.
But
That's
now,
you're right.
You know, it's like, hey, it was easier to date in the 80s too. Well, because it was everyone around you. You couldn't get on an app and start talking to people in Idaho if you live in Florida. That's what you can do now. So it's a totally new world. I think
no, it's a totally new world. But the thing is, it also isn't. Like, we got streaming in 2014. Late 2014 was when social media really started hitting, and everybody had broadband access. That was over a decade ago. We've had a decade of information. If you study the works of Jonathan Haidt, especially the coddling of the American mind, and also the study he did, famous study he did on social media.
Yeah.
I just realized I have a much better formulated answer to your original question, Kwaku. I think more women are leaving church because young women pay so much more attention to the ebbs and flows of social media. And social media has caused exponentially more depression, self-terminating thoughts, self-deprecation, obesity. Like, there's not a single measurable quantifier associated with social media that hasn't gone down, including community. And
Community's huge.
What's the biggest sense of community that you can have? Is church attendance. So I bet you that the decline in female participation has more to do with the negative impacts of social media formulating their thoughts about, you're stupid if you believe. That's actually more a male thing. Religion is harmful is much more of a female
Religion
thing.
is harmful. Yep, I think so.
I think social media has done a lot of good work.
Well, okay, so then on that note, though, so if the narrative is that religion is harmful,
okay,
you have millions of women in America, and this is what they believe. They think of a church and think, that's a bully center. How does that change? The change is going to have to come from the church.
You need women to. This part of the reason why I started the women's show was because we need women to step forward and say, no, hold on, that's not true. But your average woman that's on the more active side, that's raising children, participating in her calling and things like that, she's so busy, she doesn't want to go out of her way to say, you know what, I'm going to do a once-an-hour podcast in which I hire a babysitter, I detach from my work, from my husband, from my clamoring child, and I'm going to go fight the good fight on social media for people I don't know. The woman that is succeeding in church is so strapped with her volunteer work, her parenting, her profession, her everything. She doesn't have a lot of leisure time to compete. And this is where social media and the activists against the church have such a massive advantage, because they're not married. They're not raising children. They're sitting there protesting in the name of climate change, anything that Jared Halverson says, because they hate them. And they can get up and they can blog and they can tweet. And by the way, if they are married, half the time it costs them their marriage because they're focusing more on that anyway. And vilifying the men is never good for a relationship with your husband. Man-hating 101 is all that feminism has turned into. And so I really think that the social media impacts women more. And the women that are on the anti-church side of the argument are wildly advantaged due to their time.
It's their battlefield.
Okay, so you've explained how you see the painting, but you haven't said what is the church's response.
See, but that's the problem.
They need women to step up, just like the women of WardRadio have, and they're not doing a good job.
See, that's the problem. Is that what you're saying is women are more dissatisfied with it. They feel more wronged, so the church has to change. I think that's a false presupposition. I don't think they are wronged. I don't think it does have to change. I think that the perception, like the Gini coefficient, it's the perception that they're wrong or they're oppressed that is increased. Women in America are more affluent and more, prosperous than any women in the history of the planet.
They've never been safer. They've never been less victims of violent crime, kidnappings.
But of course, we're a bunch of men talking about this while Brittany is sitting here.
What you guys are saying, but really think outside of the box, because if that's the reality, you're kind of saying all these women, these millions, don't really recognize reality. So it's either they don't recognize reality and the churches are right, or they recognize reality and the churches have missed the mark and they're not opening their eyes.
I'm perfectly fine looking into this camera and saying I believe the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is exactly right about the role of women, and all of those women leaving are totally wrong.
Well,
If they
totally
think they
wrong.
need the priesthood,
he
they're completely wrong.
He is going for a fight.
I'm sorry.
Hold
I
on,
do.
Jonah. You're not answering his question. He was saying, "Oh, do you think the church is wrong?" This is what I think: is that social media distorts their reality.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
He's
saying you're arguing with reality.
So they're not
yeah,
wrong.
We are.
Their reality has just been restored.
Yes,
It's been
distorted. Very
distorted. So
Well
like.
put.
Hold on. I think it goes back to what you guys were saying about community, right? I love what Gordon B. Hinckley said, where he said every member of the church needs a calling and a friend. And I think women, we are very social creatures and we like our community. We like having our friends. And I think maybe if you are having struggles, I think it's easy to get onto social media and misery loves company. And then all of a sudden you have all these people following you and giving you validation for how you're feeling, and it becomes a game of telephone, and it just goes down from there. Where if you have a strong group of friends in the church that you can talk to, I think it's much more easier to sway you the other way. I mean, everyone has struggles in the church, but women not being valued, I don't think that should ever be one of them.
I look at my grandmother who graduated from University of Utah in the 1940s, and I look at that generation of women, and I'm like, none of these crybabies on social media are a tenth of the real woman that she was. Not even close.
I think Jonah and Jacob are in a competition.
Bring
I
it
think
on.
you two are in a
Bring it
competition
on.
to who can anger
Oh.
the editors of the Exponent
Oh,
more.
please, Faith Matters, do a special on me. I'd be honored.
Okay, I'm gonna say I think churches have to officially ordain women. That's when it's going to stop. That's what I think.
And whether or not they do, I think everybody should know that is the easiest and fastest way to destroy your religion.
But ordain them as what?
Priests and priestesses. That's what I think. Yeah, I think straight up.
Do you want women to start out like passing the sacrament? Should they go straight to bishop? Should they like?
Okay,
Because even men have like.
Well, I'll give an
they're not
example.
just a
I'll give an example.
high priest right away.
Some of the rules are arbitrary. So passing the sacrament, I think that's arbitrary. Why can't women do it? Because men bless it, you know everything, and then you take the sacrament and you walk to the pew. Now you hand it to the person. You hand it to a woman and she takes it, and then she passes it to the person next to her. What is so holy about that little walk from the table to the pew? Women are already passing it. Why can't they walk from the table to pass it there? To me, it's arbitrary.
Why can't we sprinkle instead of immersion?
But you could also say it was arbitrary that
Arbitrary?
Jesus Christ only called male apostles. Because at the end of the day, you're not arguing with us; you're arguing with Jesus Christ. When he came, he called 12 men as apostles, not 12. Not
And he
6
called
men, 6 women.
and he left the sacrament to male priesthood as well.
Well, there's
So was Jesus a sexist?
No, there's arguments in some of the non-canonical texts that he did ordain women.
I know.
Here's-
I
here's
know.
this-
And
this-
I've read them all, and I just wrote a book on all of them. So please bring it on.
No, I'm just
Give
saying.
me your citations.
None of
'cause I
us
know
were
them
there.
verse by verse.
None of us were there. There's also, I mean,
So was it a mistake that Jesus Christ only called 12 men?
no, but obviously the restoration and the original church. I mean,
And
we're
Joseph-
doing things differently
Joseph
than how
Smith
they did there.
restored the priesthood according to the dictates.
But Joseph
of-
died before he could do everything he needed to do.
Look, guys,
No,
I
this is
think
wrong.
it's
But
really
here's the question.
easy.
Though, wait.
Totally wrong.
What is so holy about that little? Women already passed the sacrament.
Well,
Hey,
can
you
I
know
tell
what?
you why I think men have the priesthood?
Well, no, but on that specific example, because she
Right.
asked, for example.
No, I'll tell you
Brittany
exactly why.
said,
Because it's an ordinance of the priesthood. That's why. What's so holy about it is that it's an ordinance of the priesthood.
So why do women pass it at all?
Okay. No, they don't pass the sacrament. Okay. So I would say that what's so holy about it is that it's an ordinance of the priesthood. And the reason why men have the priesthood is because we interviewed, was it David Thomas, the author of Why Men Hate Church?
David Murrow.
Oh,
Yep.
David Murrow. David Murrow. He brought up a very good point. He said that women will always sacrifice rules at the altar of relationships. And men will always sacrifice relationships at the altar of rules. So if God is a God of both justice and mercy, he needs us to remember the reason why rabbis were called rabbi at that time and had to be married was because they had to know how to mix justice and mercy. How do you maintain justice while still applying mercy? Well, one of the ways to keep a hold of the justice half of the equation is to call the gender that is uniquely specialized at maintaining rules over relationships. And then you put in charge of the rearing of the actual species that you've created, of the relationships.
The people who value relationships.
The people who are in charge of relationships over rules. And this is a reason why, for example, the young women's president obviously can't be a man. The primary president is prohibited from being a man, okay? And the priesthood and all the boring crap like setting up chairs before every meeting, okay, is relegated to the men because the way God created us was one is better at maintaining rules over relationships and the other one is better at maintaining relationships over rules. So you put the people in charge of relationships that are good at relationships and the people that are in charge of rules good at rules.
I understand what you're saying, but to Brittany's point, when she was asking about specific things, that's a specific example. When women are sitting down, they are passing the sacrament to the person next to them, and we're totally okay with that. That doesn't diminish it. Mm-hmm. But the walk from the table to that chair with the kid whose tie is undone and whose left pant leg is tucked into his sock, that is too holy for women.
No, but that answer is easy because, like, for example, if I get pulled over by a cop car and he just has to walk from his cop car to my window to give me the ticket, I can hand it to whoever else I want in the car. But at the end of the day, it's a ticket from the state because the cop with authority is the one that gave it to me. So the deacon has to be the one that takes, a priest has to does a prayer and the deacon has to pass it because they're the ones with the authority.
And that type of legalism or perceived arbitrariness can be debated. That can be debated. I think this is arbitrary, that's arbitrary. The problem is that Jesus Christ did instate a lot of laws and a lot of that sometimes they seem arbitrary. Why are we baptized in water? Why are we baptized? Why immersion? Why not sprinkling? Why not apple juice?
That's a debate right there because there's about a billion Jesus followers who are like, no, you can sprinkle.
Right, and it divides people so much that they killed each other for 30 years in Europe over some of these things because they're seemingly arbitrary. But the problem is that Jesus did say that.
Well,
he did say bread and wine and water and immersion and 12 and not 13. He did say these things.
Well, and also, if we can change the sacrament from being water or wine into water and stuff, because
one goblet into tiny little cups.
Yeah, exactly. Why can't we do that with baptism? Like, why can't we baptize in orange juice? You know, like
ooh, sticky.
You know, like,
you know what you think?
Or why can't women pass the sacrament?
Or why can't women pass the sacrament? Well, I think they all have the same answer. Because Christ's prophet on earth said so. Because he said that's how it goes.
There's a new gospel topics essay on this as of yesterday.
No kidding.
Put it in the Discord for you.
Well, Brad is saying there's a new gospel topics essay on this as of yesterday.
So Jonah, you're making an appeal to authority, which is okay.
Absolutely, I'm appealing to authority.
I'm always against appeals to authority in debates because technically it's considered a debate fallacy.
Okay,
technically,
I want to make sure I understand you correctly.
I don't know. Appeal to Jesus Christ.
So are you saying, Quake, like, I think if I understand you right, you're calling it a question. You're saying, hey, you know, just like we got rid of some jobs that priesthood holders traditionally did, such as being observers and witnesses to baptisms. You remember that? It used to be like when we were kids, 2 priesthood holders did it. But then the church, you know, went through and they tried to say, okay, how much of this is actually just, you know, traditions of our fathers and how much of it is actually needs to be a priesthood thing? And they kind of went through all the ordinances with a fine-tooth comb and they got rid of some things. Are you suggesting that maybe there wasn't enough fine teeth on the comb and that they should also allow women to actually pass the trays because the blessing part is the only part you think that requires priesthood? Is that what you're saying or what?
No, I'm saying something's going to change. Something's going to change. And I think in our lifetime, something's going to change.
So
I don't know. I think God and Jesus, I think they respect women too much. Right now, men are in charge of the church. So if the church fails, that's on men. Like, I had nothing to do with it. God is saving me from that responsibility.
Also, Quaker.
I don't know, Brittany. Remember that one verse about my brother's keeper? I think.
Nope. Sorry, Adam
we're in
roll
this
over Eve
together.
in the garden. I have no problem saying, nope, that was not me.
I think it is all a flawed discussion to look at what women contribute and think, oh, this isn't very important. And I think that's the underlying tone of this questioning is that, oh, how come they don't get it past the sacrament? That's really demeaning to women. And you're like, man, you got real tunnel vision about this.
Okay, I'll give an
women
example.
do
That's what
women
I'm
do
saying.
lots.
Women are trying to mimic men because
Yes.
they're not comfortable in their own power.
Well,
I
also,
think though that
Quaker-
minimizes the true point. Here's an example. What's going viral right now on TikTok? The quote from Elder Oaks, where he says women who dress immodestly are becoming pornography. Right?
He didn't say that. He didn't say that. That's not what he said.
Well, pull up the clip.
I can pull up the quote. That's
Pull
not
it
what he
up.
said. Okay.
Yeah, I think what you're doing is you're reacting to the loudest of the activists on the female side. And as woke is dying and all of the fruits of woke have been manifest and it's been rejected by our society so wholly, they're just screaming louder and louder and louder because these are women that are now in their 40s and 50s that have dedicated their lives to this. And they've just
Well, how
ended
can
up
that be true if all the young women are leaving?
Oh no, because I think there's another 5 to 7 years left of activist women such as Julie Hanks, just completely influencing to the nth degree via social media. Tons and tons of women in varying degrees of faithfulness. Okay, because they're the queens of Instagram.
Well,
and
then
that's the profile that
you're saying two statements that contradict though, because you're saying our society is wholly rejected woke. But then if that was true, we would have a bunch of women flocking into church.
Well,
but they're not. They're all leaving.
No, but when your body finally conquers the virus, it's still weakened, and it takes a while for you to actually get better. When World War I was finally won, and we declared Armistice Day, there were still troops on the battlefield at the 11th minute of the 11th hour, and they all had to march home, and then they all had to recover. I think that what I should say has not been wholesale rejected and gone. What I should say is on the graph, when everybody looks back at the timeline, they will see 2019 to 2021 was peak woke. That was peak woke. But then it was defeated pretty much by 2024, and now it is on the decline. It doesn't mean that it's low all of a sudden. It doesn't go like this and then flatten. It's on the decline, but that will last another 7 to 10 years.
I disagree. I also disagree on even what woke means, but I think time will tell. But I think it's the opposite.
And I think what David
But let's play the clip, because I think this is the clip everyone's talking about, right? And I want to play the clip of Oaks because I think this is representative of the attitude of a lot of the women who are leaving the church and Christianity.
Okay, did you put it in the Discord?
I don't have it.
Oh, yeah, put it in the Discord.
What I was going to say, we did
it.
an episode with David Murrow, the author, the leader of Church for Men.
Okay.
And he talked about this. He said he's not a member of the church. And he said, yeah, I really admire your missionary program. It's pretty cool. I said, oh, thanks. And in the course of our conversation, anybody can go back and look at this. He said, you're now allowing women to serve missions? And we said, yeah. And he says, that's a huge mistake. In 30 years, there will be no men on missions. And we're like, what? He says, oh yeah, huge mistake. Classic mistake. Everybody does it. In 20 years, it'll be about 50%, and then it'll crater. And you'll have no young men serving missions. It'll all be women serving missions. And we're like, I don't know why do you say that?
I just texted you the link.
Okay.
I can also just play it on here, but
So the research and the data behind this starts with a guy named Dr. Leon Podles. He was a Catholic theologian. He wrote The Church Impotent, and he talked about feminism and Christianity. And he analyzed the psychology behind it, and he said that, and this is his conclusion, is that children view men as what you do when you grow up. Children view their mothers as what you do when you're a kid. So dad gets up in the morning and he goes to work. Mom stays home and reads me children's stories. So when they grow up, they think in their head, I'm supposed to be like dad was. I go to work and I do these things. So if dad goes to church, but mom doesn't, statistically, and this is not my statistically, they're actually more likely to be active than if both their mother and father are active in the church. It's kind of crazy. So he says that actually men are 11 times more responsible for passing on a faith to their children than women are. the fathers are 11 times more effective at passing on their faith than the women.
And young
are.
women.
Whoops. Okay, keep going.
And so his point is that it's because men are associated with adulthood, and so if you put women in those places and you take men out, men leave the church, and with men gone, children leave the church, and that's how you destroy a church. Ordaining women is the easiest way to guarantee that your church is headed for extinction. And I mean, it's not. I'm paraphrasing.
Yeah, I think maybe that makes sense in the pre-social media world, but I think we're in a totally different world now.
No, this is modern.
I think
study,
pre-social media
bro.
world flatters itself.
No. This is all modern stats, bro. I've seen it. I mean, the way men go is the way women go. Same with education.
The way kids go.
If
Well, women are getting their education and men aren't, though.
yes, that women
By and large.
Yeah, I'll tell you the stats though. Like, well, and also you have to separate secular education from religious education. But pre-COVID, post-COVID, pre-social media, post-social media, it is settled science that where the men go, if you get the men into a church body, that the women and the children all follow. And so whether you like that or not is separate from the facts that
Isn't that opposite of the stats right now?
no, right now it's the first time we're having much more men show up, more men returning to church activity from inactivity,
And as
and
more
more
women are
young
leaving.
young men staying, yes, in their youth, and more young women are leaving. However, you're also having exorbitant amounts of women extremely unhappy in their 30s and 40s, not dating, not it's like with more women leaving church, and then also in an unrelated story, more women being wildly depressed and isolated. You notice that, wow, there's a correlation here that like this trend is not a positive one. It's not indicative of them leading the way towards something good. It's actually indicative that they are victims of a toxic social media to depression pipeline that's taking advantage of them. And this isn't something that needs to be cultivated, that needs to be celebrated, or needs to be held up as some kind of standard of look at how our society is advancing. We need to show how we are failing these women. This is a demonstration of how society is failing the females, not supporting them, making them more equal. I mean, how brutal is it to tell a woman that on top of raising children, now you also have to suffer the mental burden of all their problems as bishop in the congregation? While Dale over there, who never really had to do any child birthing, he just passes out hymn books. What?
You ordain women, the men are gone. That's just
Well, no,
stats.
I hear the argument. I'm just saying, to me, something is off if right now the stats are reflecting the opposite of the argument, which is young men are returning and young women are fleeing.
No, you're
I think
right.
these- I think
Something's
these churches,
off.
These churches are more liberal than they've ever been. Do you think we're more conservative? And that's
No,
driving
hold on.
women away?
Address what he says. He is right. Like,
Yeah,
I think
for
Quaku's
the
right.
Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
No, something.
You think we're more conservative now than we've ever been, and that's why women
it's
are
not,
leaving?
No. He said something is off with our church if the stats are showing that more women are leaving than men are staying. And I agree with Kwaku. I agree that something is off. It's that we are failing our young men. We're failing our youth in general. We do not combat the tide of negatively influential social media out there. So much so that if we're failing at our job of countering negative social influence on social media, they look at 1,000 posts a day. The church puts up 2 posts a day. So obviously both young men and young women will be influenced by social media, but the gender that is influenced the hardest statistically, women, will obviously go more inactive due to their exposure to more and more negative. It will disproportionately affect women, right? So this is completely predictable.
Yeah.
If your
Yeah.
church is failing at putting an umbrella over young men and young women, if the young women are more affected by the falling rain, they will be disproportionately affected compared to the men. Look, think of it as hair. The men with short hair aren't going to have as bad a hair day on a rainy day as the girls with long hair that are all getting poured on.
No.
This is
Yeah.
basic stats.
Okay, so let's play the clip because I feel like
Okay.
it's a little more simple than that.
I am nervous that this is probably some shortened clip that was taken out of context by an activist. It says, from the mouth of apostles. This is either a super faithful
It's
channel.
just a clip. You can find the.
It's either a super faithful channel.
I just went to TikTok. It was the first one.
Or else
but it's probably not.
Totally, yeah, or else it's
I'm
probably
assuming this
not.
is not a pro
Okay.
LDS. But
And young women, please understand that if you dress immodestly, you are magnifying this problem by becoming pornography.
Oh, let me guess. He probably
Oh, and they
said,
cut it off.
Yeah.
Oh, they didn't finish the sentence. How shocking.
Well, what's the full
shocking.
context? What's the full context?
You're becoming pornography to some of the men who see you. But they cut that off. How interesting that they cut that off.
What's the full sentence then? What's the
He
full
says,
sentence?
young women, please understand.
No,
that-
before it though. What's the sentence before and the sentence after?
So,
Because
so for full context, the entire talk is directed at men.
okay.
The entire thing is directed at men and berating men. The whole thing is, okay? But this could be, if you clip it, make women feel bad. So let's take this and magnify it and throw it all over the media and clip it. So, yeah, that's telling. He says, finally,
Okay.
do not patronize pornography, talking to men. Do not use your purchasing power to support moral degradation, talking to men. The one sentence in the entire talk, and young women. Please understand that if you dress immodestly, you are magnifying this problem by becoming pornography to some of the men who see you. Now, that doesn't sound as bad as saying you're becoming pornography and cutting it off. So, somebody's trying to make an apostle of the Lord look bad.
Yeah, I
That's
clicked
what
on
they're
their
trying to do.
profile and guess which clips they have. What?
I mean, I don't really like that quote. I feel like because I dress to some men, I might be pornography. Like, well,
Yeah.
that's a him problem. That's not really.
Oh,
a
yeah,
me
I don't think
problem.
he's saying that.
But it's real, though. He's not lying.
Oh.
You think it's not true?
my point's been made for me.
No, but it's one thing to
Wait,
say.
hold on a minute. Stop. You really think that it doesn't matter how you dress, that there's not some weird guy out there who's going to view that sexually?
Okay,
You
yes,
honestly
if
think
he's
that
weird.
no men are going to be affected by how women dress?
Yeah, but
But
that's like
I
saying
feel
Am I
like-
going crazy?
to some tribes, Jonah, you are becoming dinner. Well,
Yeah, it's a fact. It's not. He's not
I
lying.
feel-
but then it becomes
Okay,
irrelevant to
guys.
the point.
I feel like he could have told the men that maybe are having those issues, like, hey, you got to fix that, instead of
did.
putting the blame on the women.
That's
of,
the whole
how you
talk.
dress.
Oh, I
He
hate
did-
this. The
no.
whole talk. That's what it is.
No, but hold on.
And then one
This-
sentence.
this
he
is
says,
where
"Watch out for weirdos," and everyone's like, "Oh, how dare he?"
But
no,
he-
there's
No,
weirdos.
he assigned. You guys are talking about the assignation of blame and shame, which he was not giving. And
True.
He did give in the sentence before by saying, "Don't patronize pornography." Like, don't patronize sexually illicit materials that are meant to elicit a sexual response when it is inappropriate. And then he also said, and ladies, understand that you can elicit sexual responses in men as well.
Some men.
Yeah, in some men as well. And he wasn't saying, therefore, if they rape you, it's your fault.
Right.
Therefore, if they make a bad comment, you're partially to blame. Therefore, no, that's all of the BS that the woke
I just feel like
activists put on it.
I feel like if a couple more women had been there writing this talk, this clip wouldn't exist.
I completely disagree. My
And here's
grandmother
why.
would listen to this. She'd say, "You've got to be kidding! What world do we
What?
live in where
Okay,
we
but
can't
also, no,
say,
no, I take,
Don't
oh, wait,
interrupt me.
hold
Can
on.
I finish
But
my
I take
sentence?
issue. Oh, sorry.
I just want to finish my sentence. My grandmother would say, "You've got to be joking. A apostle can't stand up and say, when you dress immodestly, there's weirdos out there." She would rap my mother over the back of her head if she was going out the door dressed like, she'd say, "Are you stupid? Do you know what kind of men there are out there? You're not going out dressed like that." And you'd turn to her and you'd say, "Oh, I can't believe, what a misogynist." This is ridiculous. Of course there's weirdos out there who are going to over-sexualize women. He's saying, women, you don't understand. There are some freaks out there. Watch out. And we're all like, "Oh, I can't believe he's such a misogynist. Give me a break."
I think
Give
it
me a
doesn't
break.
matter what women wear. We're always going to be sexualized. So I think he just shouldn't have said anything like, women, what you choose to wear, you could become pornography. I think I could be wearing a
women were
I
getting
don't know, kimono, maybe I'd still be sexualized.
Wait, but hold on.
women were
hold on.
getting women
No,
were
we need to take this. We need to
rape
take
still
this.
existed when they were
No, but
covered
hold on,
head
guys,
to toe.
First off, we need to take this to its logical conclusion. If you're saying it doesn't matter what women wear and that men think, that's silly, because if you walk out the front door naked with the absence thereof, is that pornography at that
okay,
point?
well, that's not wearing any clothes.
Oh,
and
okay,
that's
I know.
Not what we're
So then
saying.
let's start saying, where's the line? Where's the line?
Which
is it
TikToks
at
do better?
topless but bottom okay, bikini bottom? Is it there? You start getting into this silly argument where there's some arbitrary line that is all cultural. Okay, so I think he's trying to take this high level, and this is what really bothers me. Okay, is that we have all of these insufferable activists who've done so much damage to our social fabric by constantly policing and nitpicking what every single guy on our culture says, but the men don't do that to the women. We don't pick apart Emily Bell Freeman's talks and say, oh, you know what? I just don't feel like there was enough acknowledgement of the hard work that men do. Yesterday, there was 5,000 men.
If
there
we
was
did
5,000 men.
Oh,
there was
boy.
5,000 men that hurt themselves as linemen in America. Literally breaking and bruising their bodies so that we could all have power and lights on in the buildings, and not a single woman said yes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to chop up a bunch of videos into social media, and I'm going to write a bunch of angry blog posts, and I'm going to say
this
that
is true in the
person-
church or culture at large?
Both.
Because the example
Both.
you gave was culture at large, but I think we do have that with like Veterans Day and Memorial Day, where it's all men holding guns. We're like, we're so thankful for all these men do.
All those days that don't matter and people take off as vacation. Meanwhile, Mother's Day is sacrosanct.
Now remember,
Okay,
this entire
I grew up in
talk-
Texas where soldiers are worshipped. You grew up in California where they're spat on. So maybe there's a difference here culturally. But
Remember, this entire talk is directed at men.
Yeah, but-
it's one of 100. We sat through priesthood meeting after priesthood meeting, and nobody said, "I don't think they're acknowledging." I'm sorry,
But
why
I'm
do
saying your
certain
frustration
TikToks do
can't
better
be-
than other TikToks?
Jonah, I'm saying-
which TikToks do better? Women who are wearing ponchos or women who are dressed like they're going to the beach?
Jonah, your
Which ones do better?
frustration can't be accurate, though, if it doesn't reflect the stats. Okay, so if he says by becoming pornography, if women hear that and they go, well, no matter
he
what,
said, he said to
to some.
some men,
Yes.
Which is
you
true.
can.
Which is totally true.
but the reality is, if women are going to be sexualized no matter what they're wearing, because rape has existed forever when they were covered head to toe, there's more rape in Islamic countries than there are in
Absurd.
Western countries where women are covered up head to toe. Clearly, the sexualization and the becoming pornography can't really be that dependent on solely what they're wearing. Secondly, wait, let me finish.
No, it's
Also,
not
though, what you're
dependent.
saying-
So hold on, it's not dependent
I
on
didn't
solely
fin-
what
I
they're
didn't finish.
wearing.
I didn't finish.
No, but
I
it's not dependent on solely what they're wearing, and you're just relying
point,
on a
though,
10-second
you-
clip of
you're
a
saying-
30-minute talk.
You're saying, well, where's the line? Where's the line? The line doesn't even exist. Historically, we
There
know
it
it
is.
doesn't exist.
There it is.
Were pioneer women getting raped, being covered head to toe? Yes.
Yeah, by Missourians.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are women in Islamic countries where there are no women's rights and they are covered head to toe? How high is the rape rate?
Very high.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely, no disagreement.
So how are those women becoming pornography by wearing burqas and veils?
No,
Okay.
this is a total logical. This
No,
is
it's
logical nonsense. You're going. This is a non sequitur at all.
Yeah,
This
and
is
not
not
even a little bit.
No,
Wait,
but
wait,
in
wait.
those churches, in those countries, our church comes in as a very liberal outreach.
Yes,
With the
it
Relief
does.
Society in Nigeria, like the number one cause of death for a woman in Nigeria is her domestic partner. It's most likely sexual
Right.
assault or physical assault from a domestic partner, and they don't have a lot of rights. So when the Relief Society comes in and says this is an all women's organization where you need to be leaders and here is your budget and you need to have activities, this is wildly empowering. So
I think Kwaku and I are saying, yes, our church does a lot of good, but maybe this one sentence missed the mark a little bit.
okay, fine.
I don't know
If-
what else. Those women in Nigeria listening to this, listen to that sentence, and they're like, "That's it. That's common sense." Are you kidding?
I just,
That's all.
To me, I'm just looking at this like if our threshold is nitpicking one line in a church talk to try and make it demonstrative of some kind of widespread abuse of women, our society just cannot
No,
survive.
that's what I'm saying. I'm saying if you look at the stats of the women leaving and you see things like this going viral and you see that there's an insinuation that immodesty, which is arbitrary because everyone determines what they consider to be immodest, but to themselves. Clearly, that's a recipe for disaster. And now the young women aren't showing up, and you can cope and be like, well, they should be. Doesn't matter because they're not.
No, but they
That's what I'm
will,
saying.
because all the stats through history have shown that we have creation.
I don't think they will until
fall.
something changes. This is going to be a battle of time.
Okay, no,
I hope we don't take that. Don't take that bait. Don't do it. Don't listen to
and
these.
See, but
don't
Quaker,
listen
what's
to
so
'em.
interesting is you're saying, oh, this going viral is evidence that my thesis is correct, when in reality, this
No.
viral is your thesis is that
product of
things
it.
have to change. So you're saying this going viral is evidence to me that things have to change, such as women being given the priesthood.
Well-
and I say this going viral is actually evidence that things have already changed, that they're toxifying, that they're ruining women, and they're making them more depressed, more isolated, more obese, more et al. Okay, and that cannot last forever, because I have seen cycle after cycle in my life of creation, fall, atonement. And we are at the bottom of the trough of female activity because we are at the height of influence of social media. But guys got over it first, and they're coming back. So soon will the women.
I don't think it's true. I don't think becoming more patriarchal is what's going to bring the church back. I think it's the opposite.
Patriarchal?
Turns back in terms of women's involvement in activity. I don't think it's realistic.
Brad's here.
Let's bring in the Brad.
Yeah.
He's got the hair.
I think Europe's a great place to look.
Europe's a great place to
Oh,
look.
jeez.
Okay.
No, of
The
what's
most
going to happen.
secular, anti-religious continent
No.
on the planet.
I'm saying that's where we're headed.
So,
That's the future. The future isn't, oh well, they're all going to come back. No, they're just going to not come back, and society will just be that way.
Right. That's because they liberalized their religions. That's what happened in Europe.
The Catholic Church is the biggest church in Europe. They haven't liberalized anything.
Okay.
What do you mean?
You're not.
So-
you're looking.
I've been a little bit sick, so I've sat out the majority of this. But
We'll
I
have
did.
Brittany give you a blessing and see if it works.
Yeah. I did want to step into this one and say, I think we need to have a Latter-day Saint feminist on this show to talk to us about this subject.
They won't.
I would be fascinated to see what they say.
I've invited them all.
If I can find you one,
Oh,
will
absolutely.
you be down?
Absolutely. But
Because
Tim-
I think there would be some fascinating stuff to go over. The gospel topic essay that I just shared, it was put in like
Huge one.
yesterday.
let's.
Giant.
It is massive.
Do we want to
and
just react to it right now, really fast?
It might be useful. I think it is topical.
I tried looking at the summary of it. It's a huge thing.
Okay. Can you give us the TLDR, Brad?
Oh, the TLDR is I don't know. I think that women have more priesthood power than we think. There's a lot of stuff that happens in temples. There's a lot of stuff that has to do with the way that women operate as missionaries, where they're given priesthood authority. I remember something interesting. I wonder if you guys know this. Maybe I just heard this and it's not correct. But have you heard that Joseph asked Emma to come up with offices for like priesthood offices for women in the Relief Society, and she chose not to?
I didn't know that.
Because that was something that I heard. I don't know if that's true. But that's been nagging at the back of my head since we've been talking about this.
They used to call Eliza R. Snow presidentess and prophetess.
Yeah.
I think we bring
Wait,
that back.
shut up. Really?
Yeah, I think we bring that back.
Is that the correct grammar? Is presented?
That's what they used to call her. Yeah.
Presidentess,
And
because
prophetess.
they've ruined all of that. You're not allowed to say actress anymore. You have to say actor.
Or stewardess. They're all just flight attendants.
But Eliza R. Snow
Yeah.
used to go all around Deseret, all around the place, and she'd walk in and she'd tell the bishops, you have to organize a Relief Society and do this, and if any bishop pushed back, Brigham Young would come storming in and he'd say, how dare you push back on this woman? She's the General Relief Society president. Get in line. And he would give talks and he'd be like, if any of you disagree with, if you try to push back on Eliza, I'm coming after you. And she went around organizing all those things. And Brigham Young is the true father of the Relief Society, and Eliza is the true mother of the Relief Society.
There's some fascinating stuff, especially when you look at like how young men, they need to have they need to be ordained to the priesthood before they can even enter the temple at all, right? Women don't have to
Women
be
don't,
ordained
yeah.
to any specific office in the priesthood before they can enter the temple. And so I don't know. There it seems to me like there's something going on priesthood-wise with men and women where it's just different, which I think is fitting with how men and women are actually quite different. And so who knows exactly what that's going to look like. Quaco, I think you're bringing up interesting things to consider and to try to figure out. I don't think that the answer is to divvy up existing priesthood responsibilities that men have and start giving those to women. I don't know if that's necessarily how it looks. But I do think we have seen a more recent emphasis on the priesthood power that women already have access to. Right. And I think we're going to continue seeing more of that. So I don't know if that sufficiently answers the things that you're talking about, or if we had a feminist come on the show to talk about it, if she would feel like that sufficiently answers it. But
I also though think religion, churches always operate downstream from culture. So whenever the culture decides something, churches follow. One example of this is integrated congregations. Wasn't till after.
I think fallen churches always follow.
No,
Because Joseph Smith wasn't following the cultural norms of his time. He was a big fat middle finger to the cultural norms of his time.
There are
because he was receiving revelation.
It's true.
It's
There are
fallen institutions. That
Yeah,
do.
but also, I mean, we're also less than 1% of the world at the same time. So like we can't.
for now,
Hey,
can't
except in Tonga.
We can't jump over
Except
our
in
horse.
Tonga.
But you look at women have only had the right to vote for almost 100 years, maybe a little less. So it's not like it's not like everything started off in this equal playing point and we've gone from there.
Yeah.
In 200 years, I think it's
do you remember
the
who
women
had
will be holding the priesthood in
where
the church.
women had the right to vote first?
Utah.
Yeah.
Well, also when you got 16 wives.
And do you remember
little
why
bit
it got
outnumbered.
taken away? It's because they voted in favor of polygamy.
That's why.
It was right. And so
1871.
Wyoming was technically the place where they had it first. It's really fascinating stuff to look at.
Susan B. Anthony was thrown into prison for trying to vote the same year that they had taken the vote away from Utah, which had already had it for years.
Yeah.
We had it for years, and they took it away the same year that they threw Susan B. Anthony in prison for wanting to vote.
I'm curious to know if anyone in our audience has a suggestion in the comments. I'd love to hear. Who do you think would be a good feminist Mormon, Latter-day Saint?
Kate Kelly.
Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day
Bring
Saints.
back Kate Kelly.
I don't think she's who we want.
I think we need our,
I
we
like
need our
it.
I want to
WardRadio
know
women
who would
Oh, you
be
mean
a
like
good,
like active?
yeah,
current-
an active Latter-day Saint member of the Restored Gospel who is a feminist that we should talk to on the show. If you guys could comment who you think would be good to have on the show, I think that would be amazing.
Riley Wibbeck.
It would be very interesting to see. Yeah. I'm curious to see how that conversation would go.
I think we should have people organize bets right now. Who's right, me or Cardin? And in 10 years, okay, in 2035, there's a huge bet on the table.
Let's
for the
do it.
stats.
I'm ready.
Okay.
100% on
Gordon B.
Garden.
Hinckley is shaking his head at you.
100% on Garden. And just another thing that might be relevant. In the Testamentum Domini Nostri, which was about Christ's ministry during the 40 days, apocryphal text, they emphasized very heavily, they said, women absolutely have roles in the church, but they never overlap with men. There's one particular passage, I don't have the citation here, but they say, women absolutely have important roles in the church, but they never overlap with the men. Men are separate, women are separate. They do different things, but they both do important things, but never cross the two. It's a fascinating little passage.
Yeah, but just because things have always been a way doesn't mean they're always going to be that way.
Just because Jesus Christ revealed it during the 40-day ministry.
I mean, Riley and I
just because
teach.
Jesus doesn't.
Riley and I currently are teachers of the 17 to 18-year-old class, right? We're teaching together, and we're teaching kids in Sunday school, and we're on exactly the same playing field. There's going to be some crossover.
Yeah, the weird thing is this whole thing where like when you get the Mormon feminists getting super angry at the Mormon church and everything, I always just think, guys, we're the liberal ones. Like,
Well, I don't know
look
that
at-
every feminist is angry at the church. I think that's why I'm interested
within our
in hearing.
society. I'm saying
Yeah.
when you get the angry Mormon feminists, okay, and screaming from the rooftops, I think, guys, we're the liberal ones. Like, literally, go to that church with the big cross on it in Provo. Like, The women aren't allowed to give even church talks. And here we are shoving a young woman, every single
12-year-old, 11-year-old
it's
young
like-
women to give sermons to 300 people.
Yeah, and then it's like they're not allowed to have leadership positions, right? And then here we are literally saying only women can be primary president, only women can be Relief Society president. And by the way, all the dudes bow to what these women say. Like, I mean, when push comes to shove, anybody
they should. No, I'm kidding.
yeah, as they should. Yeah, exactly. But like anybody that knows our culture knows that.
But the stats are reflective that even though that's reality, women, by and large, in America, in Christianity in general, and then in our church specifically, that isn't that.
Well, the stats are also
not
in
impactful.
that women give birth to 100% of our babies too. It doesn't mean that that's sexism.
No,
It
no, I'm
just means
saying
God made it that way.
No, I'm saying the stats reflect though that that's not an argument that's working, or that's not a recognition that's changing the reality, right? So, because I'm arguing the
I see what
point
you're
that
saying.
this is clear. The stats show X, and what you guys have been saying a lot of times is, okay, well,
No, the
they're
stats
wrong
show
because
that more women are leaving than men currently.
no, that's what I'm saying.
I have a
I'm
question.
giving real quick, Brad.
Yeah.
I'm saying here is the information around that is gearing that trend. But you guys have been arguing against why they're upset, but you're not really arguing as to how to stop that trend, which is why
you
a lot
stop
of
that trend. No, you stop that trend by stepping up, engaging much more in social media, especially with young men, because where young men go, young women generally follow. Where middle-aged men go, generally middle-aged women follow. Where old men go, generally their entire families follow. So you need to step up with all youth, especially those with young men. But we're watching this decline because we've done the exact opposite. We engaged in social media first, where statistically it mattered last. Amongst the women, and then the youth second, and then the young men specifically third. We did it in the exact opposite order that we should have. So we lost the most amount of ground that we could have. We literally made the single worst strategic decision we ever could in the light of the internet and the changing social media atmosphere. So how do we reverse that? By starting to make much better strategic decisions. And if the data shows that where the men go, the women go, we need to start doing uniquely very good media for Elders Quorum, for young men worldwide, but we just don't. We get pom-poms out and stand outside of Russell M. Nelson's office and say, "Happy birthday, President Nelson," and call that a social media post. It's embarrassing. So the sooner we stop doing that, the sooner we will thrive and will normalize again.
I don't think at all. Brad, you go. I don't think that's accurate. But
the question that I have is, we talked a little bit earlier. Brittany, you mentioned that women are more social. I can't remember where I saw this. I'm sorry, my brain's a little fuzzy today, but
your voice sounds amazing.
thank you. So the thing that I saw was someone doing a study where they were seeing that women being more social ended up being more. The phrase that they used was that women's focus on social aspects of things was being taken away from family and community things like religion and hijacked into social media. And that social media was starting to replace the familial bonds and the religious bonds that
the community bonds.
that community was starting to supplant. So I wonder how much of it might be that, Kwaku, where it's just social media itself, not as a consequence of social media showing us this thing.
It's isolating.
Yeah,
And you
that-
become friends with people that you don't really know, but they're validating you. So it feels like you have community, but it's a false community.
Yes,
Yeah.
bingo.
And so I wonder how much of it is social media itself is drawing women into it in a uniquely difficult way, because women are more social than men, and they tend to be at least. And so I'm curious to know how much that might influence things.
I think it's less about this or that thing social media is saying, and more about just the culture of social media. Like you say, the feeling of isolation. It's not necessarily who's making it or where or the details or the sentence or whatever. It's just that social media itself, I think, is
Because I do think that social media could be a very powerful tool for good, but I don't think that that's how it's generally used. I think that it's generally used in a way that, like,
Well, not in America. You look at TikTok in China.
Yeah.
Douyin. It's all educational.
Yes.
It's all great.
Educational.
It's just because
Exactly.
we,
It's true.
as a country, are,
true.
you know,
well, it's also specifically the algorithm is designed differently in our country.
Yes.
Right? And so, like, part of me thinks that maybe a little bit, like, that's the conspiracy side of me that Kwaku has instilled in me is like, it's a Chinese psyop that's getting us all.
or it's China just saying, look, let them have their own devices and they'll fail themselves because we're such a corrupt country.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We are. But
they're not wrong.
I just think it's been less than 100 years since women had the right to vote. Things are changing. It's not the same world it was before, and I think the women are voting with their presence, and we can cope all we want, but I don't think it's about serving more. I think we do need to serve the young men because we have a growing male loneliness problem. I think that's separate. I think more men are coming in and women are like, yeah, I'm out of here. And that's because we need to do a better job in communicating to women in a way that feels authentic. One of the biggest criticisms you see from women to other women in Relief Society, meaning the Relief Society part of General Conference, is that it doesn't feel authentic. It feels inauthentic.
I think sticking a man in a cubicle and telling him that's what his value is
It's
just
bad
as
for
much
society.
is just as much a crime as putting a hat on a woman and saying the most important thing you can do is to be a minister in a church. I think it's a lie. I think it's a horrible,
I don't
insidious
think
lie.
anybody's making that argument, but
So-
what I'm saying,
But I'm
though,
saying it's the same. It's the same.
authenticity. No, I'm saying authenticity.
I'm not
dude, I
arguing
think
with.
conference to me, I think conference needs to be changed.
Well,
We're
man.
obsessed with this pioneering format
take this
from the
bait.
1870s.
Don't take the bait.
I think you guys need to go watch Tamara Runia's talk again.
Which one is that?
There's a lot of praise for Sister Runia's talk. I'm just saying, in general, one of the biggest criticisms you hear is it doesn't. General Relief Society,
But also
talks
some
don't
of the
feel authentic.
inauthenticity that's coming from General Conference also is a natural consequence of having a clergy that is not professional and comes from the layman. If you have a guy that's been a dentist his entire life that's not as good as with people, he's not a PR rep like Matt Ball. He's just really good at fixing teeth. When he gets up in front of 5,000 people, he may not be smashing his talk.
Well,
like
and you have
Elder
to have
Holland.
a talk that can be understood and easily translated into over 200 languages.
I am fascinated to see how things like AI move that along. If AI can immediately translate the things that are being said, if that will enable us to have...
The devil is a great interpreter. I'm so thankful that you're relying on the spirit of Satan to translate.
Just remember,
I
Jesus
forgot
Christ.
you think AI is demons.
I hate it.
Jesus Christ originally and Jesus Christ in the Restoration did not choose his apostles for their much speaking. He never chose them for their much speaking.
I will. This last thing I'll say, Kwaku, I am gonna laugh so hard if our church, in order to compensate for shortfalls in translation with our conference, hires an AI division of Grok in order to translate. That will be literally, Kwaku will be the one chaining himself to the COB door, just saying, I will not let the priests of Baal profane the
If
temple.
Elon Musk
Theses.
has
Quaku's
anything to do
theses.
with our church, we're finished. We deserve it.
I am gonna buy a Cybertruck when I'm a millionaire just for the profit.
That is the
a
ugliest
Cybertruck
car.
limo.
Cybertrucks are the ugliest car.
I agree. I call it trash can on wheels.
It's disgusting.
You don't like the Cybertruck?
No.
No, what? No. It's ugly. The
So was
aesthetic's
the
bad.
Prius. Did you like the Prius?
Prius looks way better than a Cybertruck.
No.
The
Not
current
even-
Prius.
They're not even
maybe.
the same. It is a trash can on wheels. It is a Boy Scout project. It is ugly, horrible.
Pinewood Derby.
Every
I was gonna
town.
say it did look like one of my Pinewood
I'm
Derby
thinking,
cars.
yeah,
Yeah.
it does kind
It
of
is
like a
literally-
I have tricked myself into liking it just because it looks so much like my best Pinewood Derby car.
Which it's communist
No.
aesthetic.
Every
it's
town-
It's brutalist.
It's brutalist, ugly, sad, cold Russian raw fish on a depressed cold evening day where you served your mission. Cybertruck
I saw a
aesthetic.
ton of that.
Yeah.
That sounds. I'm like, yeah, wow.
That's why you like the
Yeah, my
Cybertruck.
mission.
I'm gonna say every town's douche has a Cybertruck.
Oh, poor
They
Ben
just do.
Rogers.
Brutal, man.
Poor
This
Ben
episode's offending a lot of
Rogers.
people.
I know. Yeah, we've gone after a lot of people here.
AI bots.
Hey,
are
look,
gonna be really offended.
people are gonna pan me in the comments. I'm just saying, I think I will be proven right with time. I think in a
I don't
decade.
think they're going to pan you. I think you represent the much more feminist and kind of normie position of the day
which is definitely the audience of this channel.
that is waning.
Feminists are flocking to watch Ward Radio and give super chats. Yeah.
I don't know that feminists are necessarily going to be on Kwaku's side on this. I'm curious to see what they have to say. Do you know Celine?
Dion.
Dion?
Yes, that one. No, there was a.
Baby, you're a firework. Right?
That's Katy Perry.
I'm blanking on her
That's
name.
Celine
She
Dion.
works in film.
Totally wrong.
My brain is so fuzzy right now. But she recently gave a very interesting talk. We should have her on the show too.
Is it one of these chicks
Uh,
that
no.
did the struggle session with Jared Halverson?
No, I haven't seen the
okay.
struggle session with Jared Halverson.
What a
okay, yeah.
saintly guy, though. Jeez, what
yeah.
a patient. Whew, I don't know how he did that.
I do think that we should probably try getting a feminist on the show. It would be really interesting.
I also think that this is one of those conversations where it's on top of the underlying conversation, which
Yeah.
is the general debate about the moral necessity or immoral practice of what's called patriarchy. This whole thing rests on top of the whole patriarchy. That's why you can take any women's studies or feminist class. The ending subject every semester is always, let's talk about patriarchy. Because they just say, well, what is
that
patriarchy?
arbitrarily
It's
defined
always-
thing that can always be used to leverage any argument against men because it has no clear definition, therefore can never actually ever be satisfied.
That's exact same thing I say about the word woke.
Well, no, there's some truth to what you say. No, there is some truth to what you say, and I think the use of the word woke was overstretched, but has now been interestingly refined in the advent of the term woke right. Because now we understand that it really does mean intolerant through the glorification of victimhood, and both the right and the left can do it.
I think we need the Ward Radio women. I'm tired of all this men talking about this topic. We need your girls.
Yeah,
we need
let's do it.
your posse.
All right, so
Wait. So we need to get 2 of Ward Radio women and then 2 LDS feminists.
yeah.
So
in this
two
room.
faithful, two apostate. Apostate.
No, they're not apostate.
Oh, did I say that out loud?
Carden, why do you have an allergic reaction to the word feminism?
No, because I think it's the single most destructive thing in our society in the past 100 years. Is
Really?
that.
You can't
more
think of
than an
anything
allergy,
more.
Brad.
You can't think of.
There was some
more
first
than
wave
an
first wave feminism and women's suffrage. I'm down with. I'm a descendant of one of the original suffragettes. Clara Barton is my great aunt, and I think there was some great work that was done originally. But it's just degenerating into man hating 101, and we're literally brainwashing women into hating the other half
Brittany.
of humanity.
No.
Yeah, Brittany.
I like being cute. I'm not a feminist. Sorry.
Or
brutal.
or what men consider man hating is really just women stating we want full equality, and when you're used to fake superiority, the thought of equality is terrifying.
No,
I
no,
think
no.
the
But the full
conclusion is-
equality is always women trying to have men's roles.
But what is a man's role?
Are you talking about in our church?
Well, I'm saying in Western society at large, what is a man's role? Because that's where the true debate is. That's why I said it all comes down to what patriarchy is.
Providership, protectorship.
and president. They preside, provide, protect. That's the proclamation of the family.
They're
I think
never
Glee-
marching to have more equal representation in prison. They're never marching to get the same sentences in the criminal justice
I think
system.
the majority feminist position is that we should abolish prisons, which I am also.
Okay, yeah.
I think the moral
Joseph
of this
Smith was on
episode.
that-
The
on
moral
that
of this
thing.
episode is: don't let your daughters have TikTok. Thank you for subscribing to
Yeah.
Ward Radio.
Oh, Jonah! So you admit if you want to keep the church alive, don't let your daughters have access to the information of the outside world. You just gave ex-Mormon Reddit a freaking
outside world.
You're saying don't let them
TikTok doesn't
TikTok.
reflect reality at all. That is a fantasy world.
TikTok
I
is
got
a-
3 daughters, and they will not have TikTok while
Well,
they're
I know,
in my
but
home.
it's access
no
to.
way.
It's the new public square, right?
It's not.
it's the
Gosh,
most
no.
toxic part of the public square.
Try
most
asking anything about
distorted.
Tiananmen Square on it.
Yeah, it's true. There's something. There's some names. If you want to look up Alex Jones on TikTok, you can't. You have to look up Alec
Yeah.
Jones. You
I
can't
think-
put the X because they don't let you see it.
I think people should be aware that TikTok is not a general public square. It is manipulated by a long shot by the algorithms that are on it. I think that's important for us to be aware of and to try to be careful of.
Maybe we deserve it.
Okay,
Maybe
so
we do.
look,
Maybe.
all of you too faithful feminists that don't hate the priesthood and your fellow men.
Oh my gosh,
You're,
you're like, we'd love to chat with you. Let me berate you.
reach out to Brad Whitbeck and reach out to Brad Whitbeck. He'll be our liaison. All right. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh my gosh.
Actually, if you think you qualify as a feminist in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, who is indeed in love with her faith as much as she is with her feminism, and you think that we go wrong somewhere and you can shed some additional light on this, reach out. We will buy you a ticket here to the WardRadio Wigwam, and you can sit in Brad's chair and talk to us all about everything. Brad, what do you want to say?
Also, because I think Quaker was right, and we probably don't have a ton of those in our current audience.
Well, what could that be, Brad? I wonder what that could be.
I wonder why. I would say anyone in the comments who knows somebody who they think we should reach out to, please comment those people as well.
Oh, they don't have to reach out through friends. There's plenty of hate watcher feminists that are going to be passing this straight. Oh my gosh, I can name 7 of our watchers that can send it straight.
You know what I learned?
Straight to them.
What I learned this episode? I have even more respect for Jared Halverson. That's a very hard conversation to have without saying dumb stuff. And boy, Jared Halverson's a very eloquent guy, and I admire him even more after this conversation.
What an alpha Chad. I grew up with the Halversons. Great people. And
Comment,
that's one of them.
comment how much you're putting on this bet for this 10 years from now. I think I'm going to be right. I think I'm going to be vindicated. I'm going to be correct.
Okay, so within 10 years, you say women have the priesthood?
No, but women have much higher leadership positions in the church. Like women
Just
are.
name one. Give me one measurable quantifier. So I can.
Women can pass the sacrament and give blessings.
Okay, so you
10
think
years.
within 10 years, women can sacrifice. We're going to bring back altars and lambs and pigeons and doves.
I mean,
No,
depending
women
on
can-
how you think things are going down in the second coming.
Women will be able to pass the sacrament and give blessings, says Kwaku L. We just put money on it. I got $100 on that it doesn't happen. So
I got 200 that it does.
you're richer than I am.
And each year it doubles,
And each year it doubles. So within 10 years, it's $2,000. Oh, you're
which works in your favor.
Within 10 years, that's like $1 billion. Doubling's a lot more.
Okay, I don't know about all that math, but we'll place the
No,
bet
double
in
from
10
the
years.
original.
Oh, okay.
I got $100 on this. I got 5 on it. Oh, geez, that was a horrible pop culture reference that none of you guys.
I don't get
I don't
it.
even know what that was.
All right, awesome. For this and more, please check us out at wardradio.com.